Alright, first up, I am feeling a little under the weather, so apologies if my voice sounds a little more monotone than usual. But even so, this wasn't going to stop me from going out to see the new Godzilla film. Godzilla X Kong, which I was always saying as Godzilla Against Kong, as that's how they translated it from the 2002 Godzilla X Mechagodzilla film, but seeing as how this film isn't really about Kong fighting Godzilla at all, I guess I'll just call it Godzilla X Kong. So, how is it? It's a mixed bag. I really enjoyed the previous Godzilla and Kong film. It was a lot of fun and had plenty of monster action. And I really liked the fact that we were starting to lean more into the monster side of the film and not the boring human characters. So for that, I was actually pretty hyped for this one. I think it's also worth mentioning now that I have seen Godzilla Minus One, and yeah, I will be doing a full review of that once the digital release is out. Godzilla Minus One is probably the best Godzilla film I've seen, bringing the monster back to his darker, more horrifying roots. But I'm not going to directly compare Godzilla X Kong to that one, as both films are going for a very different feel. Godzilla Minus One is harkening back to the original 1954 film, which was very dark and gritty, whereas Godzilla X Kong has more of the 60s and 70s Godzilla feel to it, with the much lighter tone and more insane monster fights. In saying that though, Godzilla Minus One also managed to have really compelling human characters, which I don't think has been done in any Godzilla film before, Japanese or American. And so coming back to Godzilla X Kong, it is a bit of a whiplash in that sense, as the human characters in this one still kinda suck. But fortunately they don't take up too much screen time, and the majority of the film is actually with Kong, which admittedly I was a little disappointed with, as I felt like he got most of the story focus in the previous film, and so I was hoping Godzilla would get a little bit more this time, but he's honestly just like a side thought until near the end. Characters will be like, oh, what's Godzilla up to? Oh, he's fighting this other monster, or he's attacking a nuclear plant, and then we'll cut to him for like 30 seconds, and then it's back to the main story again. But the stuff with Kong is good, and it's about him trying to find other members of his own kind down in Hollow Earth. And what's great about these Kong scenes is that because there's no humans with him for the most part, there's no spoken dialogue in these scenes. I mean, yeah, all the apes kind of grunt to each other, a sort of conversation you could say, but a lot of the emotion is done through facial expressions and body language, which I actually think they pulled off really well. But some of this element is ruined afterwards with the fact that they feel the need to have the humans spoon feed us this information, as afterwards they'll be like, oh look, there's a tribe of Kongs that are led by a big old mean king, and he uses a device to control this other titan. Like, yeah, thanks, we can see that, you don't need to say it out loud. Even stuff like Godzilla absorbing energy from the nuclear plant, they have to tell us, oh look, Godzilla is absorbing energy from that nuclear plant, he must be preparing for something big. Yep, cool, again, didn't realise I'd entered the blind screening with audio description services, but cheers anyway. And yeah, the humans overall just aren't that great. We have the doctor character and the silent child from the previous film, they're fine enough. But then we also have the conspiracy guy from the previous film, and this new vet hippie guy called Trapper. And they are just purely there for comedy relief, and it really doesn't work. The typical scene will go like this. We'll have our four characters enter a location, and every time Conspiracy Guy will be like, oh wow, I need to stream this and put it onto my podcast, ha ha ha. And then the vet guy will start harping on about Mother Nature, to which Conspiracy Guy will call him a hippie or something along those lines. And a lot of these funny moments just feel incredibly forced with how they're delivered. Like there was almost some sort of pause after the moment where they're expecting the audience to laugh like it's some sort of sitcom. But the cinema I was sat in, most of them just fell on deaf ears, and it was just awkwardly silent. There was also some insane plot convenience for this film. Like, one key moment involves that gauntlet you see Kong wearing in the trailers. The gauntlet comes out of completely nowhere in this film. During a battle, Kong gets frostbite on his arm and so can't use it anymore. Then as all the characters are standing around sad about it, one of them goes, oh wait, hold on, we had this secret project going on where we built a metal arm for Kong, and it just so happens to be right around the corner from us in Hollow Earth. so why don't we just go and get it? And so they retrieve the gauntlet, fasten it onto Kong within the span of a minute, and the best part is, as it's attaching to him, there's a single line of dialogue that goes, "Oh, and it also has anti-frostbite serum, so that should cure Kong's frostbite." Well, that was a delightful bit of convenience, wasn't it? There's another moment near the beginning where Kong has a sore tooth, so he goes up to the human world where they can sedate him, and they just simply pull his tooth out with a crane. And then they even manage to give him a replacement one off screen. There's a brief line of dialogue at the start where they mention that their ship is camouflaged like an electric flying creature, and the reason for this is to deter predators from attacking them. Okay, that's fair. But then later on, a character leaves with the ship and then comes back with it, leading a flock of these flying electric creatures to come help them in the fight. And it's just like, what? But I feel like the film is very self-aware of how stupid it is, as there are a lot of goofy moments like this throughout. One that stood out to me is where after Kong fights a bunch of apes, one of them is trying to run away, and so Kong picks up a rock and launches it into the distance, where the rock then just happens to whack the fleeing ape square on the head. It felt like something straight out of Hot Fuzz. And yeah, the action is actually spot on in this film. Pure insanity. There's this mini Kong character who at the beginning is hostile towards Kong along with the other apes, so when Kong is fighting them, he picks up the mini Kong and just starts flinging him around like a weapon against the other apes. It's fantastic to see. And at the end there's like a 2v2 fight scenario going on, and the way Kong and Godzilla are comboing against these monsters, it really felt like something straight from the 70s Godzilla era. There's also a shit ton of destruction in this film, and I'm pretty sure thousands of people are just casually dying in the process, as we have fully populated cities that are just getting leveled by these monsters. Not unless they're gonna pull a Dragon Ball Z dub on us and tell us that the city was empty.
That area may have been evacuated, but it'll give him something to think about.
Then again, I don't think the film is concerned with human deaths too much, as even when one of the exploration crew members gets eaten by a demonic plant thing, the rest of the crew are just like, oh no. Anyway, and just move on to the next scene. So yeah, my final thoughts on Godzilla X Kong, it's definitely got its flaws, and just doesn't make a lick of sense the moment you start thinking about it for too long. But the monster scenes are great, and the fight scenes are awesome. So as long as you don't think about it too much, and just enjoy the spectacle of what's going on screen, then it's harmless enough, and I think you'll enjoy it.